We have the Raiders playing Sunday. You can listen to that right here on ESPN 1320. And joining us now is our favorite guy to talk Raiders with, Scott Gulbransen. Silver and Black Today is the podcast. That's an Odyssey podcast, but you can find it wherever you get your pod. Scott, thanks for hopping on today, man.
Hey man, that's good. It's like saying I'm your favorite guy to talk to about the Raiders to is like saying, hey, that's my favorite guy who drills my teeth and gives me a root canal.
Well, no, see, this is not a small compliment coming from me. My dad is a Raider fan.
So you have it in the house. I get it.
Yeah. So that, like I said,
it.
no small compliment when I say that. How do the boy? I guess item number one for me is, where are the Raiders at right now after they win week 1 against a Broncos team that it turns out it might be the worst team in the league.
In the world.
They get blown out in Buffalo, and then they lose a tough one at home to the Steelers. Are we just at the point where, we're punting on this season, or is there still reason to believe like they can dig themselves out and get into playoff contention?
Well, we want to make sure people listen to the game there on 1320, so we have to say there's still some hope. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think, listen, I said it today on our show that came out this morning, that they're kind of at a crossroads, right? So things are not trending in the right direction. They go to play the Chargers this weekend. That's a tough game against a team that can sling the ball, obviously, with Justin Herbert, and your defense isn't very good. So that's a rough mixture. And so you look at this, though, and what we've been talking a lot about this week, guys, with Raider Nation is the Josh McDaniels experiment, right? Look, going into the season, I said, look, he's going to have another year. I really believe that. But at the same time, if he loses the locker room, then things could change. Well, we're already getting hints. You saw Devontae Adams' comments after the game, which, of course, he backtracked on and said, look, I wasn't talking about the front office. Okay, you say words for a reason, and I get what he's doing there. But clearly there's this issue here, guys. If you look at Josh McDaniels, a lot of doubts about him. We now have a 20-game record to go by. And guess what? It's not good, okay? It's not good at all. So if you look at a 20-game record and you're 3-17 or 7-13, excuse me, then that's not good. And not only that, guys, 1-5 in your last 6 dating to last year. You have a game at home against Pittsburgh that you should win. Pittsburgh's offense was awful, and the Raiders made them look a lot better and made Kenny Pickett's first game with multiple touchdown passes in his career, thanks to the Raiders. And then you have the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. Jimmy Garoppolo's terrible. He's leading the league with 6 interceptions against 5 touchdowns. And the coaching with the field goal, all this stuff tells me that things are trending in the wrong direction. So they have to turn it around, and they have to turn it around quickly. I'm not saying they're going to be a playoff team, but they can do a lot for themselves, and Josh McDaniels can do a lot for his future if they can go down to Los Angeles and somehow beat the Chargers on Sunday.
But Scott, I don't think anyone is expecting that. I mean, the Chargers have underperformed for sure, but the Raiders just haven't shown that they're good. And,
Correct.
I think, we're a reactionary show. We react to things. I think I called Josh McDaniel a moron on Monday.
Well,
you're not the only one.
Like, somebody clipped it and put it out there, and I'm like, oh man, I just called the Raiders head coach a moron. But it was because they were down 8 with 3:11 left, and he kicks a field goal, and then they take the penalty, they move it up. He has 3 more shots at the end zone, and then he kicks a field goal again with 2:25 left or whatever it is. Like, there was something fundamentally wrong with what I was watching. And you brought up that he's 7-13 with the Raiders. Man, he's 18-30 because this isn't his first rodeo. This is his last rodeo, but it's not his first. And we already know it's his last rodeo. We can already see that he's not cut out for this because of something like the field goal situation. I mean, you want to say that, okay, well, we'll go get a stop and we'll get back. I would much rather try to score a touchdown, and then if you don't get a touchdown, you got the other team at the 8-yard line, and then you at least have another shot from maybe the 45 or the 50, not from the 20 with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing picks again. But there is something fundamentally wrong with his game strategy that it just makes me think he's not an NFL head coach.
Yeah, James. I mean, listen, they were at the 8-yard line.
8.
The 8-yard. It's not like they were on the 45 and you're thinking, well, do we try for a fourth down go here? And no, you were on the 8-yard line. Not only were they on the 8-yard line, but remember something. The Raiders have the 5th most expensive offense in the NFL against the cap. 5th most expensive. And you don't trust them? And oh, by the way, you don't trust the guy you brought in to replace Derek Carr? You brought him in. He's your guy. Yeah, they wanted Tom Brady, but that didn't work out. So they bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. And you don't trust them to get a 4th and 5 when the game's on the line. So, yeah, I call it coaching malpractice all the time. And I think that's what it is because, look, there's nobody. I think there's been one person I've heard nationally who's defended the call. So, and it's actually a good person. But it doesn't make any sense. So I agree with you on that. And I think that we have seen enough. Remember, they blew 5 double-digit leads in the second half last year to lose games.
Yeah,
I think we got our sample size, guys. I don't think we need to see much more.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I want to bring something up too. You mentioned that they have this offense that's so expensive. Hunter Renfrow has 3 catches on the season.
Exactly.
Why is he not in the game? And why aren't you throwing it to Hunter Renfrow at the 8-yard line? He's a dude who always catches the ball on 3rd down. He's right. Like so sure-handed. Yeah, no.
Well, and the answer, some of that answer though, they gave some of that answer. The answer was, well, he's in the game plan. And so, okay, so you're the coach and you have a game plan and your players aren't following it. So what do? So Jimmy Garoppolo just basically is ignoring your game plan. So you can't he's walking himself into corners with the comments he makes because look, you don't have trust in your offense. Well, no, we needed 2 possessions. No, you didn't need 2 possessions. You needed 1 possession to tie the game. Just like in basketball, James, right? You're going for points at the end of the game. You just want to extend the game so that you can continue to play and maybe go on a run and win. Same thing in football. You want to get that touchdown. Yeah, you got to get the 2-point conversion. So what? But that's the way you extend it. And then you don't put as much pressure on your terrible defense to go out and try to stop the Steelers who were having an okay day against you already.
Talking with Scott Gulbransen. Silver and Black Today is the podcast. You can find that wherever you get your pods. All right, Scott, I'm going to come to you from the future. And I come to you from week 6 and I say, hey, heading into week 6, the Raiders are 3-2. What would have had to turn around for that to happen?
2 things. One is Garoppolo has to stop turning the ball over if he plays. Now he's in concussion protocol, so we'll see if he plays Sunday. I think he will, but we'll see. The other one is you got to run the ball. Josh Jacobs has got to run the ball. The offensive line has got to create opportunities for him to run the ball. If this offense doesn't run the ball, it's not going anywhere. Remember, they're scoring an average of 15 points a game. Tell me where in the NFL you win with 15 points a game. It doesn't happen. Okay. It's not 1960 where you're running the ball, 8 out of 10 downs. So it's not going to happen. So to me, if you get to 3-2, it's because you turn the running game around. You started to build a little pass rush. Maybe the front of your defensive line is actually doing something for once. And Jimmy Garoppolo's gotten efficient in protecting the ball.
I think I too will come from the future, Scott.
Oh,
Kyle and I are both from the future, but on different dimensions. What if they're 1-3 coming into week 4? Do you look at the situation and bail?
Welcome to the Insider's Multiverse.
Do you take Jimmy Garoppolo and call your good friend Robert Saleh and say, hey, Jets, we're going to go young. You want to chat? Because what's happening here isn't working out, but you love this guy and we loved him too, but we don't love the 6 touchdowns extrapolated over, the now future game that he's played, which means he's at least got 8 at this point. Would you like him as your Aaron Rodgers replacement?
So 2 things with that. I don't think the Jets, and I don't know, I don't know their salary cap, but I don't think the Jets can take that on. Like I think the Jets are stuck, man. But going back to your scenario, if I'm the Raiders, if they want them, I'll give them right to you because we just fired our coach because we're 1-3, and
but they're not
I don't know.
going to.
Is that what's on the line though this week?
No, I think it's getting closer though, and I say that only because there was a report out from my good friend Hondo Carpenter over at SI in Las Vegas talking about how the locker room's not lost yet, but it's moving. Like there's starting to be grumblings and lack of trust and lack of belief in the head coach. If that continues, for example, it all depends. If they go down to LA and they lose by a field goal in the last minute of the game and it's a hard fought game, no. If they go down and get blown out again and they can't score and nothing goes well, and then it happens again the week after, or something, those scenarios where it just does not get better, it gets worse, then I can see Mark Davis being embarrassed about it and saying, you know what, this isn't working. We got to figure this out. So we're going to do something else. Rob Ryan's on staff, might be a good interim head coach for a bit until you can find somebody. But the Raiders' problem has always been turnover. But in this case, it's crazy. It just seems like they are following his process and that process isn't working. So if the process isn't working and you have all that talent on offense, for example, defense was a work in progress. We know that. But on offense, you have all these weapons. You talked about Hunter Renfrow, 3 receptions. Inexcusable. You cannot excuse that away. So that goes back to whoever the CEO of that football organization is, and that's the guy on the field. That is Josh McDaniels. So you have to consider if things get worse, that it could get worse for him very quickly.
Just for the sake of it here, the Jets are sitting with $8.2 million in cap space, according to Over the Cap. The acquiring team in the Jimmy Garoppolo deal would be taking on $4.2 million this year, so they could fit him in.
Could fit him in.
There's a chance
because the Jets figure without Aaron Rodgers, we just need somebody who can come in here and throw more interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, that's they can use that. We discuss this, like I've pitched this. We always hear that they just can't afford to fire Josh McDaniels.
Yeah.
Can we do like a $5 Las Vegas like tax for every ticket sold that goes to pay for firing Josh McDaniels? I joke about this, but like, is that still an issue? Can they move on from this guy financially? Because that was the issue last year. At least that's what was reported. I cover a team that like at one point was paying 3 head coaches that they just kept stacking up and firing. And at one point, I think we even hit 4 at one time that they were paying, but it was only for like one small window, but 3 for a good portion of the time I've covered the team. Like, why can't they just move on from him?
Well, first of all, I don't buy it. And that really generated and came from Bill Plaschke at the LA Times, who I respect as a journalist, but he's just full of crap on that one. The Raiders, the old adage, and you go back to when they were in Oakland, yes, cash was, they were the 31 most valuable team in the NFL. Now they're in the top 10 of all sports franchises in the United States. So that's how much money they're making in Las Vegas. Now that hasn't transpired to being successful on the field. I get that. So to fire him and to worry about the money, I don't think that's the biggest concern. I think it's Mark Davis. He believed in Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels coming in as a tandem, and he bought into their vision for what the team should be and how they were going to do it. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to fire. I said, again, if he doesn't lose the locker room, so to speak, then I don't think he gets fired this year, no matter what they do. But again, it could go very quickly. But I don't think money's the issue there. I really don't. I know that's a popular, because Mark Davis doesn't do anything outside of running the Raiders. That's all he does. All these other guys got businesses. They're huge, massive billionaires. So I get the narrative. I just don't buy it because I've seen Forbes, I've seen Fortune, I've seen the coverage of what this franchise is bringing in on the business side, and it's massive.
Scott, not to end this here on a downer note, but Chandler Jones is tweeting again and very clearly not doing well. And now Antonio Brown is calling on the Raiders to saying he can help mend the gap between the Raiders and Jones to get him back on the squad. What does Vegas do here?
Well, I think what they've done is they've done the right thing thus far. It's not something they're going to put out there in a press release. But talking to folks there, the Raiders have done everything they possibly can to help this guy, right? And they've stood by him. And even though he's taken shots at them constantly in his psychosis or whatever's going on with him, and it's a serious matter. You're talking about a human being here, right? Outside of a football player. So I look at it and he continues. One day it's sort of normal. And then the next day It's about, Aaron Hernandez and not committing suicide in jail and implying that he was, all this crazy, crazy stuff. And then Antonio Brown. Then it was LeBron James 2 weeks ago, right? Trying to bring him into the conversation. It's just so out there. So what I think, and I know he actually tweeted out a message that he had gotten from the NFLPA, the union, saying, hey, you need to talk to one of our people. So everybody, it appears everyone associated with Chandler Jones in the NFL is trying to help him.
Good.
But he's not, for whatever reason, he's not responding and he doesn't seem to be getting better. So it's a sad story. I get concerned with some of what I'm seeing from him now too, because when you're that irrational, you not only can hurt yourself, but you can hurt other people. So I'm sure this is going to escalate on his end now. And I just don't know if his brother, it sounds like he mentioned his brother, that he hasn't heard from his brother. I don't know what's going on in his family, but somebody's got to step up and get the help he needs. And unfortunately, these are one of the situations where you're talking about committing somebody against their will because they are acting so erratically and could be a danger to them or themselves. But it's a very sad story, and we'll see how it does. But from every indication I have from people I know in the situation, the Raiders have been doing everything they can to try to get him help.
All right, Scott, thanks for joining us. This is Scott Gulbransen from Silver and Black Today. Make sure to tune into his podcast. Absolutely amazing stuff. Raiders fans, if you're not following him, make sure to jump on and follow him on social media and everywhere else. Scott, we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming on.
You got it, guys. Have a great weekend ahead.